The Los Angeles Lakers received disappointing injury news as the team announced that guard Austin Reaves will need to be re-evaluated in approximately 1 week due to a mild strain in his left calf muscle. Calf strain injuries have emerged as a common concern across the league this season, with several teams exercising extreme caution when dealing with these types of muscle problems. The league has seen notable cases where players attempted to continue playing through calf strains, only to suffer more severe injuries as a consequence. Last season provided cautionary examples when both Damian Lillard and Tyrese Halliburton chose to play through similar calf issues, which ultimately led to both players suffering Achilles tendon tears that required extended recovery period. While a mild strain might appear to be a relatively minor setback, the potential for developing a more serious injury remains a significant concern for medical staffs throughout the NBA. The silver lining in this situation for Los Angeles is that their schedule provides some relief, as they only have 2 games scheduled for this particular week, which means Reaves should not miss an extensive number of contests during his recovery period. Following the team's practice session on Saturday, Lakers head coach Redick addressed the media regarding how the injury occurred and outlined the organization's plan for managing Reaves' recovery going forward. Redick explained the circumstances surrounding the injury, stating that it has been difficult to pinpoint an exact moment during the game when Reaves sustained the calf strain. The coach revealed that Reaves had already begun experiencing tightness in his calf the day before the injury was officially diagnosed, even though the player had only participated in very light workout activities that were intentionally kept minimal. Redick characterized the injury as simply one of those unfortunate occurrences that can happen in basketball, and emphasized that the organization plans to exercise extreme caution with Reaves' recovery process. The Lakers head coach provided a positive update regarding the expected timeline for Reaves' return to action. Redick shared with reporters that Reaves should not be sidelined for more than 1 week of game action, which represents encouraging news for the franchise and its fans. Redick elaborated on the medical diagnosis, confirming that Reaves is dealing with a mild strain classified as grade 1, which represents the least severe category of muscle strain injuries. The coach stated definitively that the guard will be out of action for a week as the medical team monitors his recovery. Despite the relatively short expected absence, Redick stressed that the Lakers organization will not attempt to rush Reaves back onto the court prematurely. The coach acknowledged the serious ramifications that could potentially develop if a player attempts to compete while dealing with a calf injury that has not fully healed. Redick discussed how different players throughout the league handle calf injuries with varying approaches, but noted that athletes are becoming increasingly cautious when they receive these particular diagnoses. The coach emphasized that the medical imaging and examination of Reaves' injury looked clean, with the strain not located in the deeper part of the calf muscle, which represents positive news for his recovery outlook. Redick reiterated his confidence that the injury should only require a 1-week absence from competition. Considering how crucial Reaves has been to the Lakers' performance throughout this season, Redick acknowledged that he will need to implement various changes to the team's lineups to compensate for the absence of his versatile guard. The coach emphasized just how important Reaves has become to the Lakers' offensive and defensive schemes. Redick noted that Reaves essentially makes many different aspects of the team's game plan function effectively. For the upcoming week while Reaves recovers, the coach indicated that the team will experiment with different lineup combinations to fill the void. Fortunately for the Lakers, Luka Doncic is now part of the roster, and the talented guard can shoulder additional responsibilities in terms of ball handling duties while his backcourt teammate remains sidelined. In previous seasons, Los Angeles faced significant challenges with a lack of capable ball handlers outside of LeBron James on their roster, but that particular issue is no longer a pressing concern for the organization. Beyond Doncic and James, head coach Redick also received positive news with the return of Marcus Smart from his own injury absence, along with the availability of Gabe Vincent. However, the offensive production that Reaves has provided presents a significant challenge to replace, as the guard was averaging an impressive 27.8 points per game through the team's first 21 contests of the season. Determining which players will step up to compensate for that substantial scoring output will be fascinating to observe. Currently, the Lakers find themselves ranked last in the entire league in bench scoring production, averaging only 24.5 points per game from their reserves. This statistical reality suggests that in all likelihood, the team will need to rely more heavily on their starting lineup to increase their scoring contributions while Reaves remains on the sideline. Hopefully, Reaves will be able to return to game action sooner rather than later in the recovery process. However, until that time arrives, Redick will need to discover creative ways to make up for the absence of his second leading scorer who will be watching from the sideline during this period. Before this season began, defensive performance was identified as a major concern for the Lakers franchise due to what many analysts perceived as a lack of two-way talent on the roster. However, head coach JJ Redick managed to maximize the team's defensive capabilities last year as they achieved a #1 ranking in defensive efficiency following the trade that brought Luka Doncic to Los Angeles. Unfortunately, that elite level of team defense has not yet manifested itself during the current season, and Redick continues searching for answers to improve the Lakers' defensive performance. From a player's perspective, Austin Reaves understands and acknowledges that there remains plenty of room for improvement on the defensive end of the floor, as the team is not currently operating with the connected, synchronized defensive effort that defines championship-caliber teams. The professional career of one of the greatest players in the history of basketball, if not the absolute greatest, could potentially be approaching its conclusion after the current season, as Los Angeles Lakers forward LeBron James has dropped hints suggesting he may possibly retire following the completion of the 2025-26 campaign. With his 41st birthday approaching in just a matter of days, James is currently participating in his 23rd season in the National Basketball Association, which represents an unprecedented record that no other player in league history has achieved. What makes his longevity even more remarkable is the fact that he continues to perform at an exceptionally high level despite his advanced age and his recent return from a lower back sciatica injury that forced him to miss the first 14 games of the current season. For the first time since joining the Lakers organization, James is competing on an expiring contract, meaning his current deal will conclude at the end of this season. This contract situation could signal several different potential scenarios for the future of the superstar forward. The possibilities range from the reality that James genuinely could be finished with his playing career after this season concludes, to the prospect that James intends to sign with and play for a different franchise beginning in the 2026-27 season, or alternatively that he remains undecided about his future and could potentially sign a short-term contract extension with Los Angeles before the current season reaches its end. The likelihood is that the basketball world will not gain full clarity regarding what James is contemplating for his future until the conclusion of the current season. However, that uncertainty does not mean that speculation and analysis surrounding the 21-time All-Star's thought process and decision-making will diminish anytime soon. In fact, the speculation will likely intensify as the season progresses. One compelling theory that could provide insight into James's future thinking involves his youngest son, Bryce James, who is currently a freshman member of the University of Arizona basketball team. NBA insider Brandon Robinson, who goes by the moniker Scoop B in media circles, believes that James could potentially accept a significant pay reduction in order to reunite with his hometown team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, in an effort to fulfill the dream of playing professional basketball alongside his son Bryce. Robinson posed an intriguing question during his analysis, wondering aloud whether the opportunity to play with Bryce could serve as sufficient motivation to lure LeBron James back to Cleveland, where his professional career began. The insider expressed his opinion that a storybook ending in Cleveland remains a realistic possibility for the Lakers star. Robinson elaborated on his theory, suggesting that if James decided to return to Cleveland, he would possess greater autonomy and influence to orchestrate bringing Bryce to the Cavaliers organization. The insider made it clear that this represents his personal opinion on how events might unfold. Robinson also addressed LeBron's public statements regarding his intentions, specifically commenting on James's claims that he is not waiting for Bryce to enter the NBA before making decisions about his own career. The insider stated emphatically that he does not believe James's assertions on this matter, and furthermore stated that he would communicate this skepticism directly to James's face if given the opportunity. The NBA analyst pointed out that LeBron's career decisions throughout his time in the league have often not been particularly difficult to decipher or predict. Robinson maintained his position that he does not believe James when the superstar says he does not want to play professional basketball alongside Bryce. The insider feels strongly that when James eventually returns to Cleveland, he would have significantly more autonomy and organizational influence to facilitate bringing his son to the team. Robinson's theory might be considered somewhat far-fetched by some observers, particularly because Bryce James has yet to make a single appearance for the University of Arizona basketball team. Furthermore, Bryce is considered a likely candidate to redshirt during his freshman season, which would extend the timeline for his potential eligibility for the NBA draft by at least one additional year. Numerous factors would need to align perfectly for any possible reunion between father and son to occur in Cleveland specifically. Even for a player with the superstar caliber and influence of LeBron James, it would prove extremely challenging to manufacture a scenario in which Bryce and LeBron team up on the Cavaliers. However, the basketball world must remember that James has already accomplished what once seemed impossible by teaming up with his oldest son, Bronny James, on the Lakers roster. This precedent suggests that perhaps anything remains possible for a player of James's unprecedented caliber and influence within the sport. The elder James has already made history by becoming the first NBA player to share the court with his son in an official league game, so dismissing the possibility of another family reunion with Bryce might be premature, regardless of how unlikely it may seem at the present moment. The Los Angeles Lakers' defensive struggles continue to serve as a major obstacle preventing them from reaching their championship caliber potential that many analysts believe exists within the roster. The team suffered an embarrassing elimination from the NBA Cup quarterfinals at the hands of the San Antonio Spurs, allowing a staggering 132 points during their disappointing home court loss. The defeat exposed the Lakers' defensive vulnerabilities in front of their own fans, raising serious questions about the team's ability to compete with elite opponents. The Lakers' defensive problems manifested themselves from the opening tip of the game. The Spurs embarked on a devastating 15-4 scoring run to close out the first quarter, overwhelming the Lakers' defensive schemes on their way to accumulating 39 points in the opening period alone. This early surge provided San Antonio with a lead they would maintain for the remainder of the contest, never allowing Los Angeles to recover from the initial defensive breakdown. Following the conclusion of the disappointing game, multiple figures within the Lakers locker room voiced their serious concerns regarding the team's defensive efforts and execution. The players and coaching staff acknowledged that significant improvements would be necessary moving forward. Lakers guard Luka Doncic addressed the media after the game concluded, providing his assessment of what went wrong defensively. Doncic explained that the Spurs were simply attacking downhill with aggressive drives to the basket, followed by kick-out passes to open shooters on the perimeter. The guard emphasized that each individual member of the Lakers roster needs to elevate their performance on the defensive end of the floor. As the three-point shots continued to fall for San Antonio with remarkable consistency, and as the referees' whistles continued to blow in favor of the Spurs throughout the contest, it has become increasingly apparent that for the Lakers to achieve genuine improvement on the defensive end, they might need to seek assistance from outside their current building. The existing roster may simply lack the necessary defensive personnel to compete at the highest level. Lakers head coach JJ Redick spoke with reporters about the team's defensive issues, acknowledging that very few teams in the NBA do not possess some aspect of their game that opposing teams can exploit for their benefit. Redick noted that the Lakers have typically and consistently been exposed for the same defensive weaknesses on a recurring basis, suggesting that opponents have identified clear patterns they can attack. The Lakers are clearly missing a high-level on-ball defender who can consistently contain opposing guards and wings, and acquiring such a player via trade during the season might prove to be significantly harder than initially anticipated when the trade season began. One player who has frequently been mentioned in connection with potential Lakers trade scenarios is New Orleans Pelicans forward Herbert Jones, who is widely recognized as one of the premier defenders in the entire league. Jones is not eligible to be traded until January 14th because of a 3-year contract extension he signed back in July. However, according to reporting from The Athletic's Dan Woik, the Lakers' realistic chances of successfully acquiring Jones appear to be extremely low. Woik reported that team sources and league sources have informed The Athletic that the New Orleans Pelicans organization is not interested in moving Jones in any trade scenario. Considering what Los Angeles would realistically have to offer in a potential deal, which primarily consists of expiring contracts and a single first-round draft pick, the Pelicans almost certainly would not even engage in serious negotiations at that price point. The gap between what the Lakers can offer and what the Pelicans would demand appears too wide to bridge. Wyke provided additional context regarding the Lakers' trade assets, adding that the team's future first-round pick is not expected to land in the lottery range of the draft. This projection is based on the expectation that the Lakers will remain a playoff-viable franchise for years to come with Luka Doncic on the roster, and with Mark Walter, who has proven himself to be a winning owner in other sports ventures, at the helm of the organization. The Lakers' sustained competitiveness actually diminishes the value of their future draft picks in trade negotiations. Additionally, players who have been frequently mentioned as potential components of a trade package for Jones, such as forward Rui Hachimura, are currently playing on expiring contracts. These expiring deals offer minimal return value for the Pelicans organization, as they would be acquiring players who could simply leave in free agency after just a few months. This factor further complicates any potential trade discussions between the two franchises. The Lakers still have a considerable amount of time to engineer a trade agreement before the league's February 5th trade deadline arrives. However, if the organization genuinely wants to address and shore up their defensive deficiencies, the team's front office must begin acting quickly and decisively. The window for making significant roster improvements is open, but it will not remain open indefinitely. The Lakers face a crucial decision about whether to make a major move to improve their championship aspirations or to stand pat with their current roster construction.